The rain had fallen all night, tapping against the kitchen windows with an uneven rhythm that made the early hour feel heavier than it was. Ethan Whitmore stood barefoot on the cold tile floor, fingers wrapped around a mug of coffee that had already gone lukewarm. It was 6:17 a.m., and the house was too quiet. Too still. Lately everything about the house felt wrong, like a painting someone had moved a few inches off-center. Nothing obvious, no big fights, no slammed doors, no accusations. Just a series of small, almost imperceptible changes that gnawed at him like a persistent echo at the edge of hearing. His wife, Claire, used to come downstairs by now, hair still messy from sleep, wrapped in that oversized gray sweater she loved. She'd joke about how mornings should be illegal or complain that the Seattle drizzle was ruining her mood again. But for 2 weeks now, she had been waking later. Much later. Or rather, she wasn't sleeping at all, at least not beside him. Ethan would roll over in the middle of the night and find the bed cold, her side empty. Tonight had been one of those nights. He replayed the memory as he stood in the kitchen, waking at 2:41 a.m., reaching for her, and touching only the wrinkled sheet. He had listened for her steps, the soft click of her using the bathroom, but heard nothing. When he finally found her, she was in the downstairs office, sitting in the glow of her laptop, her face illuminated in sharp blue. When he asked what she was doing, she had jumped, actually jumped, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. Couldn't sleep, she'd said, too quickly. Too defensively. And then she'd shut the laptop before he could see what was on the screen. Now, in the quiet kitchen with the sky still dark and the rain tapping like impatient fingers, Ethan felt a knot tightening in his stomach. Something was happening. Something he couldn't name yet, but could feel, like a shift in the gravity of their home. The steps upstairs creaked. Light ones, Claire's. Ethan inhaled, bracing himself. Claire entered the kitchen without looking at him. She wore her hair in a tight bun, strange for a morning at home, and carried her phone in her hand as if it were an extension of her body. She set it face down on the counter. Another new habit. "Morning," Ethan said. She flinched almost imperceptibly. "Morning." Her voice was soft, tired. Or maybe just guilty. "Did you get any sleep?" "A little," she said, but her eyes drifted to her phone, not him. Ethan studied her. Claire was 34 but still held the kind of natural, unpretentious beauty that made strangers smile at her in grocery stores. Warm brown eyes, soft freckles, the kind of face that made people trust her. But lately her features had hardened, her smiles shorter, her tone colder. She poured coffee and kept her back to him. "What were you working on last night?" Ethan asked. She stiffened. "Just stuff from the clinic." "You shut the laptop pretty fast for someone doing clinic paperwork." Claire froze for half a heartbeat before forcing a laugh that didn't sound like her. "Ethan, please. I was tired. Can we not do this?" "Do what?" "This," she said sharply. "Interrogating me." His jaw tightened. "I asked one question. You're reading into everything lately." "Because something's wrong," he said quietly. She finally turned, and her eyes were guarded. "Nothing's wrong. I'm just stressed." "From work?" "From everything." Ethan waited for her to continue, something, anything, something real. But she didn't. She grabbed her phone, slipped on her raincoat, and kissed his cheek automatically, like a ritual she no longer believed in. "I'll be late tonight." A double shift. She didn't wait for his reply. She was out the door before he even processed the sentence. A double shift. Another one. Ethan exhaled slowly, his pulse pounding. Something was happening. Something more than stress. And he was going to find out what it was. Ethan and Claire had lived in Queen Anne for 8 years, a cozy craftsman house on a quiet, tree-lined street with hydrangeas that bloomed bright pink every June. Their life had been built slowly, carefully, like a stack of stones they placed together, trusting the balance would hold. He worked as a project manager for a tech firm downtown. Claire worked as a nurse practitioner at Evergreen Health Clinic. Their schedules had always been hectic, but they made it work. Thursday taco nights. Sunday morning walks around Green Lake. Watching Mariners games even though Claire didn't care about baseball. Their marriage hadn't been perfect, but it had been theirs. Solid. Predictable in the best ways. Until 2 months ago. Around the time Claire started her extra shifts. Around the time she stopped letting her phone out of her sight. Around the time she started going to sleep later, waking up earlier, and looking at him with something he couldn't decipher: fear? Guilt? Distance? Ethan had tried to rationalize it, to tell himself he was imagining things. People went through phases. Jobs got stressful. Marriages ebbed and flowed. But the change wasn't ebb and flow. It was a cliff edge. Late that afternoon, while sitting in his car outside the office, drenched by the thick Seattle drizzle, Ethan made a decision he didn't want to make. He called Claire's clinic. Evergreen Health Clinic, this is Mia. How can I help you? Hi, I'm trying to reach Claire Whitmore, Ethan said as casually as possible. Is she there? There was a pause. She's not in today. Ethan's heart plummeted. Not in. She told me she had a double shift. She's actually off all week, Mia said cheerfully. Conference in Spokane. Conference? Spokane. Ethan swallowed. Right. Of course. Thank you. He hung up with numb fingers. Claire had lied. Not just a slip. Not a mix-up. A clean, deliberate lie. His stomach twisted as the truth slammed into him with the force of a breaking wave. Something was very, very wrong. That night, Claire came home at 10:14 p.m., her hair suspiciously perfect for someone who'd allegedly worked a 14-hour hospital shift. She smelled faintly of expensive cologne, definitely not hers. Not Ethan's either. She went straight to the shower, humming softly. Humming. The sound sliced through him like a blade. While the water ran upstairs, Ethan noticed something. Claire had left her purse on the dining table. She never did that. She always hung it near the door. His heart hammered. No. Don't. But he moved anyway. He opened her purse and searched quickly, hands trembling. He found her wallet, gum, receipts, a small perfume vial. Then her phone buzzed. A notification lit up the screen, face up this time. A photo preview. A man's hand resting on Claire's thigh. A hotel room bed in the background. His blood turned to ice. The message preview beneath the photo read. Had an amazing night. Same time tomorrow. M. Ethan's breath came shallow, jagged. He leaned on the table, gripping its edge to stay upright. The phone buzzed again. This time a message. I miss you already. He felt something break deep in his chest, quietly, cleanly, like the snap of a small bone. The shower upstairs continued running. Claire was singing. Ethan slid the phone back into the purse and stepped away as if it had burned him. His world had just collapsed in absolute silence. He didn't confront her that night. He couldn't. Not while shaking, nauseous, broken. Instead, he lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, wondering how many nights she'd gone from another man's arms into his. He barely slept. The next day, he hired a private investigator. Seattle had plenty. He picked one with solid reviews, Grace Halvorson, ex-cop, blunt voice, no-nonsense attitude. Infidelity? She asked over the phone. Yes, Ethan whispered. Give me 3 days, she said. I'll get you proof. Proof. As if the photo hadn't already shattered him. But he needed to know who M was. He needed to know how long. He needed the truth, even if it destroyed him. And so, the 3 longest days of his life began. On the evening of the 3rd day, Grace texted. Report ready. Need to meet in person. They met at a quiet coffee shop in Ballard. Grace slid a manila folder across the table. You sure you want to open this? She asked. Ethan nodded. Inside were photos. Dozens. Claire holding hands with a tall, dark-haired man. Claire entering a downtown boutique hotel with him. Claire kissing him by the elevators. Claire laughing in a way Ethan hadn't seen in months. Under the photos was a profile. Name, Marcus Hale. Age, 39. Occupation, cardiologist. Workplace, Evergreen Health Clinic, same department as Claire. Marital status, divorced, 2 years. Ethan stared at the name. Marcus. M. The world began to tilt. Grace continued speaking gently. They meet almost every week. Sometimes more. Look serious. Serious. The word echoed inside him like a scream. That night, Ethan sat in his parked car outside their home for almost an hour before going in. The rain hammered the windshield, drowning everything in static. Claire was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, startled to see him home early. You're back already? Ethan set his bag down. We need to talk. She froze. About what? He took a breath. I know, Claire. Her face drained of color. Know what? Don't, he said. Please don't insult me with lies. Not tonight. She stared at him, wide-eyed, trembling. The phone slipped slightly in her hand. Ethan continued softly, painfully, I know about Spokane. I know about the hotel. I know about Marcus. Her lips parted. For a moment, no sound came out. Then. Ethan, I'm so sorry. The words were so small, they almost disappeared between them. His vision blurred with tears he refused to let fall. How long? Claire swallowed. 7 months. His breath hitched. 7 months. Why? He whispered. She started crying. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely, you were busy, we were drifting. You cheated, Ethan snapped, a rare burst of anger ripping through him. Don't you dare put this on me. I know. I know, she sobbed. I messed everything up. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Finally Ethan said, voice hollow, I want a divorce. Claire gasped. Ethan, please. No, he said, steady now. Cold. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. The next week was a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and Claire begging him to talk, to reconsider, to give her another chance. He didn't. He couldn't. One evening, Marcus showed up at their house. Ethan opened the door before he could knock twice. Ethan, Marcus said seriously. I want to AP. Ethan punched him. A clean, satisfying crack. Marcus stumbled back, stunned. Stay away from my home, Ethan said, voice deadly calm. Marcus nodded, holding his jaw, and left without another word. Claire saw the whole thing from the window. But she said nothing. She knew she had no right to. The night before she moved out, Claire asked for one last conversation. One last moment of truth. They sat on the living room sofa, the same place they had watched Netflix, ate takeout, planned vacations. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. Ethan stared at her with tired, shattered eyes. Maybe. But you stopped choosing me. She cried quietly. He didn't. There were no tears left for her. When she stood to leave, she hesitated in the doorway. Goodbye, Ethan. He nodded once. "Goodbye, Claire." And she walked out of the home they had built. Into the rain. Into her new life. Leaving Ethan with the ruins of what once was, and the freedom to rebuild. Months passed. The hydrangeas bloomed again outside. Ethan slowly rebuilt portions of his life piece by piece. Therapy. Running again. Reconnecting with old friends. Finding quiet moments of peace in small things. One evening, while standing on the back porch, watching the sunset burn orange over the Seattle skyline, he realized something profound. The pain hadn't destroyed him. It had reshaped him. He was still standing. Stronger. Clearer. He had survived the storm. And maybe, just maybe, after the rain, something new could grow.